TO Blaze. Hey there, this is TO bringing another Kerbal Space Program video. Today I'll be expanding my Arctic research station on Kerbin. The station that I currently have is just basically a habitat with some experiments, and it could do with a full science lab. And the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed my intro to these YouTube videos is a screenshot from Kerbin's Arctic biome of that exact base. You can tell not just by the white landscape, but also by the air-breathing jet parked at the site. There's only 2 places in the Kerbal system where that could be. So you don't get a lot of science points on Kerbin, and the station that I have isn't exactly meant for raking in science or revenue or anything like that. It's just fun to explore Kerbin, and I like to build stations like that with jets and jeeps and support vehicles and stuff. So as you can see, the module is relatively small. Basically consists of that main science lab with some accessory equipment, put a bunch of batteries, and that antenna with some robotics, and that's about it. Some science experiments that I'll use to load up with the lab. I'm using these wheels there at the bottom because I don't want the I'm not going to be able to dial in my position very easily. You'll see the rocket that I'm going to use is just going to give me approximately where I need to be, and the wheels are going to help me really put the science lab exactly where I want it, next to the habitat. I'm going to drop this thing off using some parachutes, which you're seeing now, and those are detachable along with the wheels. So all that should be left once I'm in position is the science lab itself. So I'm going to use some little rockets attached to the parachutes, so when I decouple the parachute modules, those rockets are going to clear it from the site, so they're not going to be in the way, and they're not going to come back and crash and damage anything else. So like the other hardware that I sent to the Arctic, this module is going to be launched atop a suborbital rocket. I like to use vector engines in my second stage because of their excellent gimbal range. And then my bottom stage is going to be basically the same tank size, just with one of those engines that has what's equivalent to 4 vector engines on it. And then I'm going to use some fins, obviously, as you can see, to help me control my approach, as I'm going to be in the atmosphere for most of the flight. So the launch is going to be pretty different from my usual ones. I'm going to head pretty much directly north, except slightly west to account for the spin of the planet. It can be kind of tough to gauge how high and how far I need to go, because a lot of the flight will be in the atmosphere, and my prograde is going to continue to drag the longer I'm in the atmosphere. So I do try to get a little bit out of the atmosphere, like I said, a suborbital flight, so I can spend a little time above the atmosphere where the drag and such isn't going to affect my trajectory. So that way I can really gauge about how far past the Arctic base I need to shoot for, because I know once I enter the atmosphere that that trajectory is going to start to shrink again. Again, that's why I use these vector engines. It's going to be really handy to have those on approach if my craft starts to spin out of control, or if my trajectory starts to drag a little more than I expected. I can compensate using the vectors and the little bit of fuel I got left. The fins also help me stabilize and point my craft the direction I need to go in. But basically, I've burned up the rest of my fuel in this second stage. I'm going to try to get my trajectory as close to the Arctic base as possible. Before this video, anytime I've landed more than a few kilometers away from my target, man, it's a pain. I find these land vehicles don't handle very well. So this time around, I was really shooting for that Arctic base. There you can see a second target down in the bottom right corner. That's actually another vehicle that I landed. I've been too lazy to drive it because it takes so long to drive carefully and not spin out of control, and your entire vehicle just falls apart. But there you see I've separated from my second stage and activated my parachutes, and I'm coming down pretty close. I think that's within 10 kilometers of the base, which ordinarily would be a good 10 or so minute drive in real life, just to keep it at a decent pace so the vehicle doesn't fall apart. But as you can see in this clip, I did discover that you can actually time warp while on the ground. Here in a second, you're going to see the footage start to pick up speed. Ordinarily, that's the pace I like to go at, 10 to 15 meters per second. There, I'm actually saving because I've had vehicles fall apart on me, and I've regretted not having saved once I touched the ground. So I'm about to time warp in the game, something that I just discovered I could do. Now, it does look a little shaky, and it made me nervous at first, so I think I changed from prograde to target lock. But yeah, I can speed up 4 times in game, and it definitely turned the 10-minute drive down into about 1.5 to 2 minute to 2 minute drive, which is definitely more bearable. So yeah, once I get to the base, like I said before, I'm gonna jettison these wheels and raise my my module using the landing legs. I don't really have any other plans for the Arctic base. Like I said, I sent a Jeep, and now that I know that I could time warp like this, I'll probably drive the Jeep to the base. I already have a pilot, and with this module, I'll have a scientist. The scientist is going to convert all the experiments into more science points. So within a year or two in-game time, I'm not sure exactly how long it'll take, all the science from this biome will be used up. And I may or may not send another craft here to pick up my Kerbinauts, because so long as you're on the surface of Kerbin, you can actually recover a vessel or Kerbinauts from anywhere. So technically, if I'm not careful, I could recover this vehicle where it's sitting, and then the launch was all for nothing. So that may be a fun challenge, is to send another vehicle here, load up the Kerbinauts, and then fly back to the Kerbal Space Center. If I'm feeling adventurous, I guess. And then you can see the pilot. I was going to send him out to do the experiments on the lab, but then I realized there's no way for him to put the experiments in the science lab. So I go to my tracking station. I'm going to delete the wheelbase that's under the lab. So now the lab will be clear of all the debris around it. And then I'm actually just going to manually activate all the experiments, and I'll be able to clean them up using the lab, so I can rerun the experiments, and getting very little science points. When you start the game, this is all a good chunk of science, but now that I've unlocked all the technology in the tech tree, and I've been to all the planets, really this is just for funsies and to see how much science I can rake up. And that about does it. As always, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please hit that like button or leave a comment, and I appreciate you tuning in. I hope I'll see you again next time.